Officer Bradley Kingston's fingers trembled as he gripped the electric clippers, something that had never happened in his 15 years of law enforcement. The black woman kneeling before him in the courtroom wasn't showing the fear he expected. That made his blood boil. He had planned this moment for months, ever since she started questioning his arrests and dismantling his cases. She had humiliated him, stripping away his authority piece by piece. Now it was his turn. "Let me show you what real power looks like," he snarled, bringing the clippers to her head. The silence in the courtroom was suffocating. No one moved. No one spoke. The first dark locks of her hair tumbled to the floor, followed by more. And yet, her calm smile never wavered. Even as he stripped away what he thought was her dignity, she remained unshaken. When he finally finished, she rose to her feet, lifted her chin, and met his eyes with unwavering confidence. "Now that you're done, Officer Kingston," she said, voice steady as steel, "I'd like to return to presiding over my courtroom." The weight of her words settled over the room like a thunderclap. In that moment, it was clear to everyone he hadn't taken her power. He had only exposed his own cruelty. That day, the world watched in horror. And by the next morning, the headlines had sealed his fate. The arrest of Bradley Kingston, the internal affairs officers arrived at his precinct before noon. Kingston barely had time to process what was happening before his wrists were wrenched behind his back, the cold metal of handcuffs biting into his skin. The same courtroom where he had once wielded the clippers like a weapon now bore witness to his downfall. Judge Naomi Carter, her freshly shaved head a badge of resilience, stood in her judicial robe, her power unshaken. "You'll never make these charges stick," he spat. But for the first time in his career, his voice betrayed him, fear creeping in like a slow, rising tide. The internal affairs officer gripping his arm tightened his hold. "That badge wasn't about power, Kingston. It was about trust, and you shattered it completely." As he was led to the transport van, every step stripped away the illusion of invincibility he had worn for 15 years. The uniform that once granted him absolute control now felt like a costume, a reminder of a role he had abused. By the time he reached the processing room, his world had unraveled. His gun, his badge, his wedding ring, his watch. One by one, they were dropped into a plastic bag. Each item taken was another piece of his identity being torn away, and then, finally, the last blow, a prison jumpsuit. For the first time, Bradley Kingston stood on the other side of the bars. A world without power. His first night in the cell was a crash course in reality. Every metallic clang of a closing door, every distant shout, every whispered threat carried the weight of karma. His cellmate, Marcus Lyle, watched him with knowing eyes. "Remember my face?" Lyle asked. His voice was calm, but the edge in his tone was sharp. Kingston did. 3 years ago, Lyle had been just another body in his arrest record. 3 shattered ribs. Lyle continued. "For days without medical care. You said people like me needed to learn our place." Kingston pressed his back against the cold wall, trying to summon the arrogance he once wore like armor. But Lyle saw through it. They all did. Days melted into weeks. The prison yard was a gauntlet of familiar faces. Men he had beaten, arrested, humiliated. They watched him waiting. He learned to walk with his shoulders hunched, to eat alone, to sleep in short bursts with one eye open. Pride gave way to raw survival instinct. The first attack came in the shower block. 3 inmates, led by a man whose teenage son Kingston had paralyzed during what should have been a routine traffic stop. As fists rained down on him, reality set in. No backup, no brotherhood, no thin blue line to shield him now. Lyle found him later, dabbing blood from his split lip. "Stings, doesn't it?" he mused. "Being treated like you're less than human?" Kingston spat blood onto the floor, wincing at the pain. "What do you want from me?" "What?" Lyle scoffed. "This ain't about what I want. It's about who you're becoming." A reckoning with the past, the words haunted him. At night, he listened to the echoes of the prison, the quiet weeping from nearby cells, the murmurs of regret, the dreams of lives left behind. He began to recognize names, stories, faces. The man in the next cell? Arrested on bogus drug charges, Kingston's own handiwork. The one 2 cells down, framed by falsified evidence in a case Kingston helped build. Slowly, the cases stopped feeling like victories. They became lives. When visiting day came, Kingston watched as other inmates received wives, children, and parents. His own calls went unanswered. The system he had served so faithfully had discarded him just as he had discarded so many others. Then, one day, a visitor arrived. Judge Naomi Carter. She studied him through the glass, taking in the new lines on his face, the slouch in his posture, the weight in his eyes. "I've received some surprising reports about you," she said finally. He met her gaze. "I'm not the same man who walked through those gates. Tell me why I should believe that." He looked down at his hands, hands that had once wielded power recklessly, hands that had inflicted so much harm. "Because now I understand what I never could before," he said quietly. "Power isn't about control or fear. It's about responsibility. And I abused mine in ways I can never fully make right." She nodded, considering his words. "The system isn't built for redemption, Mr. Kingston. But people can change if they're willing to do the work. I am." And for the first time in his life, the words carried real weight. The road to redemption, his path forward, wasn't easy. His sentence was reduced, but it came with conditions: mandatory counseling, community service, working with families affected by police brutality. Not freedom, but a chance. He spent his days in the prison library, helping other inmates with appeals. He listened to their stories. He started seeing them not as criminals, but as fathers, sons, and brothers. He saw them as people. And each day, as the prison fell silent at night, he thought of Judge Carter, of her shaved head, of her unwavering dignity, of the lesson she had taught him about real power, not the kind that breaks people, but the kind that offers them a chance to rebuild. A new purpose. A year later, Bradley Kingston stood in front of a room full of police cadets. His hands, once used to wield power as a weapon, now held notes. His voice, once dripping with arrogance, now carried the weight of hard-earned truth. "Power doesn't come from fear or force," he told them. "It comes from understanding, from serving the community you swore to protect." I had to lose everything to learn that. In the back of the room, Judge Carter sat watching. Her hair had grown into silver-streaked curls. She saw the man who had once tried to break her, now working to build something better. Not because he had to, but because he chose to. Bradley Kingston's rehabilitation program had become a model for police reform. His darkest moment had become the catalyst for change, and the system that had once enabled him was finally beginning to transform. One conversation, one lesson, one truth at a time. Real stories, real change. If this story moved you, help us reach 10,000 subscribers. Each subscriber represents a voice in the conversation about justice, power, and the possibility of change. Tell us in the comments, what moment in Kingston's journey struck you the most?